And welcome back, everyone, to the Pokemon Team Creation Series. From Diego Lorente, we have the question of, what is the Pokemon's team of Woody the Cowboy from Toy Story? Very dumb buzz, so it makes sense to talk about Woody. You'd be surprised how difficult Woody actually is, because A, Woody's a toy. So, okay, I want something that could be representing of a toy, but there's not a lot of Pokemon that actually represent toys. And the few that do don't quite work. And then he's a cowboy. Okay, great, a cowboy. That should be easy. No, actually, we don't have a very good representation of Mon that work like for cowboys, or at least particularly in Woody's case. But I think I've worked out a team that can work. So, because right out the gate, a cowboy is nothing but his trusted steed. Now, his steed is Bullseye. Ride like the wind, Bullseye. And because of that, I had to go with a horse Pokemon. Surprisingly, there aren't actually a lot of horse Pokemon when you break it down. There's the Ponyta line in both Galar and Kanto. There is the Zebstrika line, but that's more zebras, but still, it counts. There is the Mudsdale's line, and there's a Spectrier and Glastrier line. Unless I'm mistaken, that's really all we have for horses. We still, yet to this day, have a Pegasus Pokemon, but if Gen 10 is in fact based on Greece, like we're all hearing and speculating, then that should be the point where we're going to get a Pegasus Pokemon. Better, at least. But I ultimately went Rapidash. Yeah, it's technically a unicorn more than a horse, especially with the horn, but it was, up until we got made generations later, the fastest Pokemon. So ride like the wind, sure. And, bonds with the trainers, the flames don't hurt. It's a full-fledged horse, so ultimately, I like Rapidash for that. Now, that being said, the idea of something that's at least kind of toy-ish, but not exactly, bear with me on this, Mimikyu. Mimikyu is not a toy. It's a ghost that wears a sheet, but it wears a sheet that makes it look kind of like a child's, little stuffed Pikachu. So in that sense, you get a little bit of a toy. But beyond that, it's doing it because it wants love. It wants you to play with it. It wants to be your friend. But you can't see the real version of it because it will basically drain your soul and kill you. Well, in Toy Story, the toys are alive. And in fact, if they really want to, they can scare the piss out of people and show that they are in fact alive, sentient, and they see everything. So play nice. They can scare the piss out of you if they really want to. And so, weirdly enough, this actually works in this Mon's favor for that. You can't see the real them without consequence. Then I figured we got to go with a few of the Mon that can represent his friends. So, for example, his best friend is Slinky Dog. But before we get to, well, technically it's Buzz, but his best friend prior was Slinky Dog. But he also has his girlfriend is Bo Peep. And it would make sense, especially when we learned what happened with Bo Peep in Toy Story 4, that that she could have left one of her sheep with her. So he has a Wooloo on his team. Not a Dubwool, mind you, but a Wooloo. And I think that makes sense. Not every Mon on his team should or would be fully evolved. And a little keepsake Pokemon from his girlfriend could make sense. But as I said, his best friend up until Buzz came around was Slinky Dog. And by all accounts, Slinky technically is still his best friend. Buzz and Woody are great friends, but technically speaking, Slinky is his best friend, at least in the first movie. So, Dachshund, it's based off a Dachshund. It's based on a wiener dog, so that makes complete sense. Enough said. Now, I did want something that represented Buzz, though. This is where it gets a little tricky. There is no good Pokemon for Buzz. There just isn't a straight Buzz Lightyear Pokemon. But if we're to fudge the facts a little bit, bear with me here. I decided to go with Lucario. Tried and true favorite, especially with those characters that are more combat-based and use energy attacks. Lucario is just a good pick. But beyond that, it is a steel type. It is a Pokemon that defends other Pokemon. It is, bipedal, which helps. But beyond that, too, it's a friendship-based evolution, which that would make sense for someone like Woody or Buzz. Their whole relationship is based off trust and friendship. So I think that can actually work in its favor. I don't love it. I think there may be other candidates out there, maybe. But in terms of, technically speaking, Araquanid is a better fit because it's got a spacesuit. Well, not really. It's got a space helmet on, but still. Last but not least, though, I needed something because he's Sheriff Woody. I needed something to represent that. But let me tell you something. You're going to drive yourself crazy trying to find something that really represents a cowboy in Pokemon. You're going to even struggle hard to find something that represents the law and justice that way. You might be able to find something a little bit more effectively, that just because that seems to be a trait more Pokemon carry. But ultimately, merging the sense of justice with Bullseye and the youthful naivety of children, which, the toys themselves are, big protectors of, I ultimately went with, come back here. I ultimately went with Keldeo. It's supposed to represent D'Artagnan of the Three Musketeers, so that makes sense. And because of four, but the Four Musketeers, and they represented justice, and they are the swords of justice. It's a horse to represent Bullseye, but it's also the youngest. It's basically the kid of the group. So all this works actually pretty well when you break it down, I think. Now, in terms of how balanced this makes this team, it's a team that's really not the greatest against a couple types. It's not very strong against ground. It is like 2 times weak to ground, with the only one who's strong against ground, ironically, playing Keldeo. It's 2 times weak to steel, but that gets counteracted when we get to the strengths, as we got 2 fairies on the team. It's a times 2 weak against fighting, as we got 1 steel and 1 normal. And it's times 2 weak against psychic, as we got 1 fighting and actually 2 fighting. On the other side of the coin, though, it's got a times 3 strength against steel with the 2 fighting types and fire type. Times 2 strength against ice because of that. Times 2 strength against times 2 strength against rock. Times to normal. Times 2 strength against fighting thanks to the fairy type. And a times 4 strength against dark thanks to your 2 fighting and 2 fairy types. So it's definitely got more strengths and weaknesses. Unfortunately for this team, there's only a couple regions where you could even attempt to become the champion. Because right out the gate, you're going to have a Ponyta to start with. And your Ponyta is going to just be stuck at characters like Roxanne and Rourke, who have multiple rock types with rock type moves on their team. You're just not going to do especially Rourke, where you're not even going to be able to get past that damn crane. The power that thing hits with is no good against a fire type with no real strength against a rock. Even if you could get to champions, you could not beat Cynthia. Cynthia alone is going to be problematic because you have no good answer to Spiritomb. I mean, yes, you could ultimately. Give me 1 second. Loading. There we go. Sorry, I closed the door, but my dog was in here. I'm like, I'm going to start the video. If you're going to move, then move. And then she decided to do it while I was doing the video. But anyway, Spiritomb, you do have answers for Spiritomb, but unfortunately, Mimikyu can only take 1 shot before the skies wears off. And even still, stat-wise, Mimikyu might be able to put it down, but it's not putting it down in 1 hit. And Spiritomb does have Sucker Punch on its side, which would be neutral, but it's still neutral. Spiritomb hits freaking hard, man. So you would take the Spiritomb down. Great. But then Roserade comes out. Okay, you deal with that with Rapidash. So far, so good. Then Gastrodon comes out. And this is where the problem comes in. You have no answer to a ground water type. None. And if I'm not mistaken, that thing has Storm Drain on it. So water type moves are no good against that thing. Which Keldeo would be your only option. Then you still have to deal with Milotic. You'd still have to deal with Lucario, who, because it's a fighting steel type, means the Rapidash is your only option, assuming it's not dead already. And then you got to deal with Garchomp. Now you might think, well, Garchomp can be handled with the fairy types. Dachshund does not have the stats to deal with that thing, and Mimikyu at this point would already be down its disguise. And it doesn't have just dragon moves, so Cynthia's a no-go. Even though is a possibility, you can handle every one of his steel types with Rapidash, as well as Lucario and Keldeo. That's not a problem. And his rock types, quite frankly, except for Armaldo, can be taken down without too much issue. Same thing, fighting types alone. Really, the only one you don't have a clear-cut answer for is Claydol, but even then, you still have Mimikyu on the team. The problem is, you still got to deal with Mon that are going to resist a lot of attacks. Armaldo's going to resist one attack no matter what. Easy. Metagross is going to be hit extremely hard. Claydol, you will need to hold on to Mimikyu for that thing. So it's not an impossibility. Not impossibility. But it's not a guarantee either, I don't think. I think Steven's a maybe if you could have gotten to him. Well, what about some of the other regions where you can get a little farther? Well, in Kalos, you can get to Grant, and that's it. You have to deal with Tyrant and Aurorus. And Tyrant and Aurorus both have rock moves, and they're both going to take Ponyta down without too much issue. Because Aurorus is just neutral to fire, and freaking Tyrant is like quad 4 resistant to fire. So you need to say Mimikyu for Tyrantrum. And even then, there's no guarantee you get past that. Even if you could get all the way to Diantha, again, let's just work this out. Diantha, she starts with Hawlucha. Rapidash isn't a great option. It's not a bad option. But you could still save it for Aurorus or for Gourgeist. So you're probably going to want to switch out into Dachshund, because Mimikyu you don't want to switch into yet. Unfortunately, that thing has Poison Jab, which means that's going down. Mimikyu can take one hit, and then it's going to maybe take down the Hawlucha, which then he's going to bring out Tyrantrum. He's going to just run over Mimikyu at that point. You got to go one of your fighting types. Probably go Lucario. It's got it's because Kelly has the better stats. Tyrantrum's still probably going to survive a hit. You then have to take out Aurorus. That's quad 4. That's fine. Goodra, though, it's just going to be tanky. Goodra's tanky. Then you got to deal with Gourgeist, and then you got to deal with Mega Gardevoir. It's Mega Gardevoir that's going to kill you at the end. So, no, I don't think you could become the champion of Kalos. Also, you will not become the champion of Galar either. Nessa is the one you'll basically stop at. She's going to take out your Ponyta, no problem. Mimikyu can't take on that team on its own. Even if you did get to Leon, Aegislash goes down to Rapidash pretty quick. Then you got to deal with Dragapult. Now, because you have 2 fairies on the team, you might be able to handle him more effectively. The problem is, though, no matter what, Mimikyu, he's going to take down the Rapidash pretty quick. Shadow Ball, Thunderbolt, Dragon Breath. He's going to take those guys down, the Rapidash, no problem. Then you really probably want to switch into, honestly, Dachshund first. You want to try to save Mimikyu the best you can. Again, stat-wise, Dragapult's either taking you down 1 hit or nearly killing it in 1 hit. You might get 1 hit in. It's not going to be enough to kill it. Dachshund doesn't have the stats. Then Mimikyu comes in, he gets rid of the disguise. Maybe you're lucky enough to take it down at that point. But then he brings in Haxorus, who will definitely survive a hit no matter what from the Mimikyu. Sets up a Dragon's Dance, then it's just Earthquakes. And at that point, you're in trouble. Even if you take down the Haxorus, there's still whatever starter he has, the Rhyperior, which you can't take down either. Same with the Mr. Rhyme, although it is Psychic, so that issue comes into play. And then Seismitoad is going to be a problematic mon for Lucario. And then you still got to deal with Charizard. I just don't see it happening. Really, I don't see it happening. All right, then. So what about the other ones where you can go even a little bit further beyond? Oh, and then Iona. Sorry. In Paldea, I don't think you really get past Iona. Yeah, again, Mimikyu can take a hit. But you are going up against that freaking Mismagius that can basically Hex Confuse Rayu. Oh my god, is that thing busted. So, yeah, I don't think you get past Iona. Could you beat Gita? Yeah. Enough of her team is just straight out weak to fighting, especially the back half of it, that you should be able to beat Gita without too much difficulty. Okay, well, what about the ones you go even further beyond? Well, the ones you go the furthest beyond are Johto, Kanto, and Unova. In Johto, you will struggle with Whitney. I don't think it's a guaranteed loss against Whitney, but I don't think it's a guaranteed win either. You are going to struggle hard, but I think you might be able to pull it off. Okay. What about the next one that's difficult? Well, that would be Morty. The ghost typing is just not one you're really stacked up well against. You're going to be struggling pretty hard. You're not going to have any strong fire moves or Rapidash at this point. So your only real choice is Mimikyu. Truth be told, I think you might stop there. But if you can get past it, Claire actually isn't all that bad, all things considered, because that'd be your next problem. Because Mimikyu is going to be immune to a lot of the dragon moves. You will now have all your team fully evolved. The steel type will help just resist the dragon moves, and fighting moves are neutral to dragon, so there's that. However, I think you are stopped, quite frankly, once you hit someone like Bruno. Because you don't, well, not Bruno, sorry. I said Bruno, but I think, because Will would be a problem. You don't have a good answer to Will except for Mimikyu, and Mimikyu can't do all of that. So Will is actually Will is a big problem, to be honest. Then you got to deal with Koga, which your two poison types or fairy types are in trouble against them. As well as I forgot to put poison down for weakness, but yeah, actually no. Yeah, I didn't put it down because Ghost is weak, is resist poison, so you're actually neutral to it with Mimikyu. That said, however, Steel, between Rapidash and Lucario, you should be fine. Bruno is not that big of an issue. You have two fairies and a ghost type. Karen is tricky because even though she's a dark type trainer, only 3 of them on are dark. The other one is a Gengar, which is a ghost poison type. So even your ghost type Mimikyu is going to run into a problem. Oh, not to mention Vileplume is on the team, but you should be fine there. And then there's Lance. I don't think you beat Lance. Let's just take Wooloo out of the equation almost every time. Wooloo's just there for the character, really, more than anything else. Yes, you have 2 fairies on the team, but those Dragonites have moves that are that will hit and hit hard against those fairies. That is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, and then Rapidash obviously is resisted by pretty much everyone on that team. Lucario is really going to struggle hard, especially that once the fire type moves come out. And Keldeo can do its best, but no, I don't think you get past Lance. Then in Unova, honestly, I think Elisa is problematic. Because while you don't have Ponyta, and she's going to be hitting hard and fast, particularly with that Zebstrika. That Zebstrika is problematic. Maybe you could survive a hit. The fairy is actually not good against fire. This means, or fire moves. It's not weak against them, but still. Now, nothing on the team except for Keldeo is weak to electric, which is good. But nothing you have is strong against it either, particularly with the moveset these guys learn. So, yeah, and that's not even taking into account the 2 Emolga with Aerial Ace and Volt Switch. So, you might be stopped at Elisa, honestly. Even if you did go all the way to the champions, all there is a maybe. A maybe. You send out Rapidash first, because that's the order you do it in. He sends out a Selgor. Now, a Selgor would outspeed Rapidash. It would. But Rapidash has the type advantage, and a Selgor is not designed for big whopping defenses. Okay, so it's still going to take a match to hit. If a Selgor survives, I still think Rapidash survives and takes it down, but that'd be weak. I think he's either bringing in, at that point, Buffalot or Druddigon, I think would be the next likely candidate, because you're not bringing in Vanilluxe, you're certainly not bringing in Excavalier, and I don't see Volcarona yet. Okay, so at that point then, if Rapidash is maybe at half-life, you could swap it in, because you're going to need that for at least Excavalier. So you swap in against Buffalot, you throw out either Keldeo or Lucario. Now, Buffalot, despite being weak to them, is bulky, beefy, and hits hard, so it's going to get hit or guaranteed before it goes down. So now he's got out Lucario. Let's just say it's Lucario. Okay, well, what's the option there? Well, the option there, I would say, is, weirdly enough, Volcarona. Volcarona would be the best option he throws out at that point. You can't throw Vanilluxe out. You can't throw Excavalier out. He could throw Druddigon out, but that's going to be resisted by Lucario. Volcarona is your best bet, and unfortunately, this is where the problem's going to lie for you. Volcarona gets at least 1 Quiver Dance off, you are in trouble. Lucario doesn't have a good moveset against the Volcarona, not at all. So you now got to make a decision. Keep the Volcarona in or swap in or something else and take the hit. Personally, I say swap in the Wooloo. take the hit, and then pray, because the only thing you really got that could help you is Keldeo, and even Keldeo's stats aren't going to be enough to put that Volcarona down after it gets a Quiver Dance off. So once that thing gets a Quiver Dance off, that thing is going to be really bulky and really hard to put down. So it's a maybe you could put Alder down. As for Iris, even though you got 2 fairies on the team, the Hydreigon just got a diverse enough moveset to kind of take down a lot of this team on its own. The only guaranteed champion, not even guaranteed, the only champion that's a real maybe that you could get through the entire region and then get to the champion would be Kanto. Because honestly, the only gym leader that's going to give you a problem is Brock. And if it's, say, Leaf Green, then you're probably not getting past him because he has Rock Tomb at that point. But if it's, say, just red and blue, well, they don't have rock moves, so you could still do it. And if that is the case, you can make it all the way to blue, start out the match, Pidgeot versus Rapidash. You could probably beat that matchup. He's going to bring in Alakazam next, which means you should probably switch or at least let Rapidash get a hit in before it dies. Bring in Mimikyu. It takes a hit. It's going to fire off ghost moves. So maybe you can take the Alakazam down. But this is where the maybe you could win comes in. If you can't take the Alakazam down with a Mimikyu, you're SOL. Because nothing on this team is going to be good against an Alakazam. Besides that. But let's assume the Alakazam goes down, but the Mimikyu is near death's door. Rhydon comes out, takes that thing down. You bring out a fighting type. Okay, no problem. Bring out Lucario. But now he's got a grass, a fire, and a water type on the team. The fire type is problematic to Lucario. It is. The water type and the grass type will not be. So they'll assuming that their starter isn't the fire type, is not Charizard. Your Arcanine, you're going to be in trouble. That Arcanine is powerful. So Lucario, I think you might actually want to switch out of, go into Keldeo, use water type moves if you can. No guarantee on that, obviously. But then the grass type comes out, and Keldeo probably is injured regardless. So you got to make a choice. Or just risk it to Keldeo, or save the Keldeo. I say save the Keldeo. Go to the Lucario, do whatever you have to do with the grass shenanigans, and then obviously the water would be the only one you got to deal with left, provided the order is whatever the order is for whatever starter he had. So regardless, it is possible you could beat him, but it is a maybe. It's not a guarantee. Either way, though, that is Woody the Cowboy's Pokemon team. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you folks for the next one. Later.